House Democrats are already facing backlash from the party's left wing. Representatives Ro Khanna and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez say they will vote against a package of rule changes that was endorsed by Nancy Pelosi, the expected next Speaker of the House. They're voting against a pay-as-you-go provision. The rule would require all new spending to be offset by either tax increases or spending cuts to keep the deficit flat. Critics of the provision say that would make policies like Medicare for all and tuition-free college harder to achieve. The vote on rules changes will be the second held Thursday, following the vote on the next speaker, expected to be won by Nancy Pelosi. Joining me now from Washington is Nadeam Elshami. He's spent more than a decade in Nancy Pelosi's office, including 4+ years as her chief of staff. Nadeam, thanks so much for joining us. Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year to you, too. Thanks for having me.
So Representative Khanna called PayGo, quote, terrible economics. Representative Ocasio-Cortez called it a dark political maneuver designed to hamstring progress. What do you make of those assessments?
Look, I mean, it is common sense budget. That's what PayGo is. The Affordable Care Act was paid for. This legislation, any type of legislation that you have to get through Congress, must make sure it's paid for, because at the end of the day, you know, someone is going to end up paying the price, whether it's going to be people who you represent, people who you care about, certain constituencies. And look, and Congress also has the ability, let's not fool ourselves, Congress has the ability to also waive PayGo in certain instances and on certain bills.
I want to take a step back for a moment. There's a clip I'd like to play from CNN when Congresswoman Pelosi's daughter, Alexandra, was asked about her mother's approach to meetings with President Trump. Let's listen to that.
She'll cut your head off and you won't even know you're bleeding. That's all you need to know about her. No one ever won betting against Nancy Pelosi. She's persevered. You got to give her credit. No matter what you think of her, you have to give her credit, because think about it. Think about all those presidents she's endured, right? She was the Bush, the Clinton, she's been through it all.
All right. So, Nadeam, as somebody that worked closely with Nancy Pelosi, is that an accurate assessment to you? And also, does that approach only apply to Republican opponents or to Democrats who might oppose her as well?
Well, let me just make something very clear. I agree with Alexandra's second part of the statement, right? Never bet against Nancy Pelosi. She's someone who is absolutely capable of coming up with the best agreement, who knows the issue inside and out. And this is the same approach she takes with Democrats, she takes with Republicans. She took with President Obama during the Affordable Care Act, during Dodd-Frank and other pieces of legislation as well, when she was negotiating with President Bush. And look, in terms of what she said at the beginning, Alexandra is someone who is her own individual, has her own style, and she said what she said. I would never say it. I don't agree with it. But, I agree that you'd never bet against Nancy Pelosi.
I think, what about, from a sort of figurative standpoint, when it comes to being in Washington and navigating the corridors of power as she has, let's talk about the position that Nancy Pelosi finds herself in. You have a White House now led by President Trump, a Republican-controlled Senate, and Democrats, of course, controlling the House. How will she navigate all of that to create a productive legislative session?
Well, look, I mean, the way Nancy Pelosi, or the way Speaker Pelosi views this, she views it as an opportunity, right? It's the art of the possible. What can you do in order to legislate? That's number one, right? Because you come to Congress in order to legislate and to get bills signed into law. Two, in order to also present a clear vision to the country of who you are as Democrats. And Democrats have so far done this, and they're going to start by doing that tomorrow, by putting on the floor a piece of legislation that's going to fund the government, open the government back for business. And then three, conduct strong oversight, right? So it's legislate, contrast, and oversight. And whether you have a Republican in the White House or whether you have a Democrat in the White House, it doesn't matter. If Democrats are in charge, these are the steps that they're going to take no matter what.
Nadeam, how are the intra-party feuds different now, given the political landscape?
Sure. I mean, they are absolutely absolutely different. Look, the Democratic caucus has always been diverse of ideas, diverse of coalitions, diverse of where you come across the country, you know, from the Congressional Black Caucus to the Hispanic Caucus. Now you have new members coming in with new ideas, members who don't want to wait their turn, which is great. They have the energy in the caucus. They are representing a new voice from across the country, and that's going to make caucus meetings very, very interesting. In a way, I'm kind of jealous. I wish I was in there a little bit.
Are you jealous, Nadeam?
No, and actually, I'm not.
It's going to be tough, right?
It is going to be very tough, no question about it. But it's going to be tough because they're all working for a common good, and that is to, you know, come up with legislation that is beneficial to their constituents. Look, Democrats come in for one reason, and that's to get things accomplished. And here's a secret that's out there: Democrats enjoy governing. Right? Their first response is not no. Their first response is, okay, well, we may not disagree on this particular piece of legislation. How can we make it better? And that's what they're looking for. And these are going to be the debates within the caucus, right? Everybody at the end of the day wants to make sure that Americans have health care. How do we get there? Well, we have the Affordable Care Act. How can we build on that, correct? We want to create jobs. How can we do that? Well, we could pass an infrastructure bill. You know, and I think those are the kind of debates that you have within the Democratic caucus.
Yeah, and how do you balance, though, all the competing interests? I mean, you spelled out the different areas from oversight to actually trying to be productive in this legislative session. I mean, as you well know, there are some very passionate factions within the Democratic Party who have very different ideas of what Democrats need to be focusing their energies on.
That's right. You're absolutely right. But the committee chairs are experienced. Some have been waiting their turn, actually, and are now chairs. They're prepared, and they are going to be very, very critical in the next 2 years in the Democratic Congress. They are going to be the ones working to conduct, the right oversight. They're going to be the ones, passing the legislation through committee, through a organized committee process where you have amendments and you have long hearings and markups. They are going to have a very, very important role to play.
All right. Nancy Pelosi's former chief of staff, Nadeam Elshami. Nadeam, thank you so much. We'll be watching along with you.
Thank you so much. Take care.